Welcome back to some new malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called International Raids. Some time ago, my company was moving our factory out of the country. As I was a critical component of the transition, I was spending 50% of my time at the new factory location. I had a company cell phone to do my company business on, as well as my own personal phone. I applied for international rates on my personal cell phone and used it for my personal calls. After 1 or 2 trips to the new factory location, I noticed my company cell phone bill was quite high, almost $600 a month. I tried to make calls from the office whenever I could to reduce costs. However, it was sometimes necessary to call when I was out in the shop. I had to call back to the USA factory to clarify issues. I then approached my admin assistant and applied for international rates on my company phone. The international rate of my company phone would have been $45 a month. I found out shortly after that my director had not approved my request for international rates, stating it was not in his budget. I contacted my director and explained to him my situation and the cost avoidance of an international rate. He explained that I had a company cell phone for a reason and that I should use it. My malicious compliance followed. I no longer felt bad about making calls from the shop. In fact, it was easier for me to spend most of my day in the shop. So my cell phone bill for the next 30 months on my company phone hovered around $1,000 to $1,200. The bill went from $1,500 for 30 months to over $30,000. I never understood that decision, as that money came out of his budget anyhow. The next story is called Not a Moment. I work at a pet store, and this happened a year or so ago. One of the opening the store routines is to scoop out any deceased fish that died overnight. We then bring them to the bag to put in a freezer. I just finished scooping that and saw that another worker had left the previous day's dead fish in the sink still. So I began to bring the bags off of the sales floor, since they reek of decomposing fish. As I walked to the bag, a customer stopped me and asked me to explain some pet foods to her. I said, "Sure, just give me a moment." And before I even finished saying moment, she immediately says, "No, I will not give you a moment." I just stared at her in shock. I tried to explain that we will both suffer from this, but she kept interrupting every time I tried to speak. Eventually, after explaining some cat foods to her, she seems to notice the smell. She goes, "What on earth is that smell?" And I raise my hand that has the decomposing fish. She asked me why I was holding that. And I said, "Well, I asked you to give me a moment, but you said no." She sort of laughed and said, "Go, get it away from me." The third story is called Furthest Array. This happened about a year ago. I was working at an electronics store and was pretty new. One day, a lady with the classic Karen haircut came in looking for a laptop. After I helped her find the right model, I checked to see if we still had it in stock. Since it was sold out at our store, I told her I could look up if any stores in the area had it or the version with more capacity. Sadly, only a store in a different city, around 2 hours away, had it. While I was looking up possible locations for the other version, I told her that only the store in the other city had that specific model, but I was checking for the version with more gigabytes. She was furious. In an ironic tone yelled, "Sure, 2 hours is nothing for a laptop. Why don't you just look up the store furthest away from here? And maybe on the way back I can take a reroute for an extra hour or 2 so I can get a laptop cover." I guess it's pretty obvious what I did next. I am sorry to say the lady did not find it very amusing and left as soon as I said the name of the city furthest away that still had both versions in stock. The next story is called Ready for Pickup. Last summer, during a scorching heatwave, I found myself in desperate need of an air conditioner. Determined to find relief from the sweltering temperatures, I ventured into a big store. As I perused the aisles, my eyes landed upon a sleek and promising AC unit. Excited by the prospect of some cool air, I scanned the item with the store's mobile app, and to my delight, the price seemed reasonable. With the AC unit in hand, I made my way to the checkout area. In this particular store, self-checkout was the norm, with only a couple of cashiers available to oversee the process and assist customers when necessary. As fate would have it, when I scanned the item at the self-checkout, the price displayed was significantly higher than what the app had indicated. It's important to note that the app clearly stated it was the company's own product and not from a third-party reseller. Feeling a bit perplexed, I decided to call over the cashier who was supervising the self-checkouts to seek clarification. Approaching the cashier, I explained the situation, hoping for a resolution. Much to my disappointment, she informed me that the lower price was only applicable for purchases made through the mobile app. I asked if she could get a manager, although she insisted that she was right and that they cannot perform a price match. Though slightly frustrated, an idea began to form in my mind. I asked the young high school age cashier, if I were to purchase the AC unit through the app and show you the receipt, would you allow me to leave with the product? Surprisingly, the cashier agreed. With a mischievous smile, I proceeded to purchase the AC unit online using the app and receive a digital receipt. Walking out of the store, I felt a sense of triumph, knowing that I had cleverly outmaneuvered the system. For the next few weeks, the cool breeze provided by the AC unit brought me blissful relief during the relentless heatwave. However, as time passed, I received a peculiar email notification. The subject line read, "Your item is ready for pickup." Confused, I opened the email, only to discover that it was a notification regarding the very same AC unit I had already purchased and enjoyed for weeks. In disbelief, I dismissed the email, assuming it to be a mistake or a glitch in the system. Yet the digital world persisted in its efforts to reach me. Another week went by, and I received yet another email, but this time it was different. The subject line stated, "Refund issued for your purchase." Curiosity piqued, I opened the email and read the contents, which explained that the refund had been issued due to my failure to pick up the item. It dawned on me that the store's online and physical inventory systems had not synchronized properly, leading to this chilling turn of events. The last story is called He Knows Everything. It's been about 5 years that I've worked at this gas station food mart, and the only other clerk who's worked here longer than I is an old man from the old country. We'll call him Jacob. Jacob chooses to work the graveyard shift, and I was hired to work overnights 2 weeks a night, so he could have some days off. On my other 3 days, I worked in the mid-shift and would turn over the register to Jacob when he would come in at 10 PM. In the beginning, Jacob and I would chat a bit before I would go, which meant mostly listening to Jacob complain about how he does so much and works so much harder than everyone else. I could understand that, since on the graveyard shift there were fewer customers, so the night clerk had to do more cleanup and maintenance around the store. But I really think Jacob liked working alone, where he could be his own boss. About 2 years ago, the store got a new manager, who happened to be a very pretty and smart young lady. She did a good job and treated everyone fairly, so if inventory came up short, she'd calmly explain to each person that we had to be more careful with our accounts. Jacob didn't take to being managed by a woman very well, and when we got tips for better performance, he'd grumble about that a lot. He eventually went to the male owner and complained that he worked so hard, that he shouldn't have to be treated like that. In a compromise, the owner said that Jacob had to listen to the manager, but a few jobs would be moved to earlier shifts. Those were mine, which was how I got the enviable task of emptying 6 big cans of gas station garbage. This way he wouldn't have to work as hard. Jacob took to bragging that he knew everything about how the store was run, because he talked to the owner, and the manager was tricky, but he knew what she was up to. With more stuff for me to do during the day, I'd sometimes not clock out right at 10 PM. But a few minutes after, which at first Jacob didn't seem to care about. Then, about 9 months ago, Jacob got sick and was out for almost 3 months. In the time period that Jacob had been gone, the store had also had an equipment upgrade, and we had a newer generation register that we all had trained on. When Jacob returned, his report numbers tanked, because he refused nothing but the minimum instruction from the manager. Instead, he'd make me stay even later, asking me how to input transactions in the register, but insisted that he still knew everything. One day, Jacob was so certain that the manager was targeting him with training just because she was racist that he went straight to the owner and threatened to quit. For reference, the owner and Jacob were from the same country. At this point, Jacob had his duties slashed, been given excessive time off, and now he was making the store lose money. The owner's answer to his threat was, "Okay, tell the manager when your last day will be and stop calling me." Well, naturally, Jacob was just bluffing and didn't leave the job, but he had to have yet another concession to satisfy his control issues. so he demanded that I be clocked out and end my shift not a minute later than 10 PM. He even started coming in a few minutes early and grumbling while putting away my stool, stapler and pens before I was even done with them. Okay, if that's the way he wanted it. Now I'm ready to go at least 10 minutes early, and I just wait for him to show up, then immediately clock out. We don't talk or chat at all anymore, unless Jacob tries to stop me and asks a question about how to do a function on the register. I'm off, I'll answer. Besides, you know everything. Thanks for watching the video to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.